Good morning. For those of us that are logged in California, maybe we can just, if you're on site or online, if you're with people, can we just take the time to just greet the person beside us, tell them po good morning, and possibly even say Merry Christmas. All right. Pinnacle Village, welcome back. As Pastor Amber said, we are in our new series, Why Not Christmas? And for this whole month of December, the whole world will be focused on one event. Everything else will seem to be secondary as we all focus on celebrating the season of Christmas. Now, can I just begin by saying this? The season of Christmas is highlighted by three things. And I don't know about you, but all of these three things are one of my favorite reasons why we are celebrating this season. So the first is the Christmas celebration is a festival of lights. How many of you, you're like me, that you love looking at the Christmas lights? You love looking at the lights in the trees. Go ahead, can I just see a raise of hands? Yes, so you love looking at the lights on the trees, decorations on the houses, even like the regular lampposts, they have decorations on them. And I believe that they give us joy and wonder, correctly said by Timothy Keller, because lights are not just decorative, they are symbolic. I remember even in the narrative of John, John was saying, and the light had entered into the darkness, and the darkness had not overcome it. And I think that's a beautiful description of Christmas. It's a light from an outside source that is coming in and illuminating us. They're not just decorative, they're actually very symbolic. But the second thing that highlights Christmas is it's a time of family gatherings. How many of you love this about Christmas? You know, your families come over, your friends come over, even your loved ones come over. It's a time where you can take a break off work, all of the stressful life, and enjoy relationships with each other. The third thing that highlights Christmas is it's a season to generously give to those closest to us and to those in greatest need. How many of you, this is your favorite thing about Christmas? You get the chance to give gifts. Oh, how many of you, your favorite is to receive the gifts, right? Yes, all right. And so these three practices, if you look at them, actually, they are genuinely aligned with the Christian origins of the celebration. And that if you look at the very first Christmas, if you look at the four narratives, the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we will get to see that the very first Christmas was not all glit and glamour. The shepherds, the Magi, Joseph, even Mary, all of their plans were disrupted. They were disturbed by God. And yet, amidst impossibilities, they saw the very first Christmas. And so today, as we look at the very first topic, we're going to look at and focus on the Christmas of Mary with how do you celebrate Christmas amidst impossibilities? Now, among those three things that are mentioned, could I also ask for those online and even on-site, Pastor Peace is on there in that chat box, how many of us, one of your favorite things about Christmas is you get to set up the nativity scene? How many of you like that? Or at least you like seeing it, or, it gives you joy when you look at that scene where, there's a picture there, there's the manger, and then there's Joseph and Mary, and right at the very center, that's Jesus Christ. But you see, beside him, the two closest figures to him are Joseph and Mary. These are two indispensable figures as well. And as we look at this scene, I'd like us to ponder upon this fact, that it's hard to ignore that the Christmas story is wrapped around people. That the very reason why Christmas is something that's worth celebrating, it's because this very story is wrapped around the life of real men and real women. And so today, let's consider how to respond to this Christmas of the year 2021. How many can say that this year was a very tough year for us? Can I say it was a heavy year? It's a time where maybe you lost a loved one. Maybe it's a time where you were laid off at work, and as they say, it's also the time of the great resignation. Maybe it's a time where you find yourself financially challenged. Maybe it's a time you find yourself relationally challenged as well. Or maybe even you find yourself challenged in your own faith. Today we're going to look at the story of Mary and how in the very first Christmas, how did she respond to the impossibility? The very impossible task that Mary had was to become the mother of Jesus. And so we're going to look at three things which I owe a lot to Timothy Keller in his book, The Hidden Christmas. We're going to look at the three things of the journey of Mary, of how she responded from struggle into eventual willing surrender. Now we're going to open her story in Luke chapter 1, and we get to realize that Luke actually narrates a lot of the story of Mary. Luke actually tells us so much about how Mary responded in faith, and I think the very reason for that is because we can learn so much from her, and possibly even there are so many things that she can teach us in our own journey of faith. Let's open the story in Luke chapter 1, verse 27 and following. The virgin's name was Mary. A lot of scholars say that Mary was probably around not older than 16 years old during this time. The angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you." Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, "Don't be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You'll conceive, and you'll give birth to a son, and you're to call him Jesus, and he will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." And then Mary asked the angel, what's her question? "How will this be?" Now, we're not going to read the whole story, Paul, for the main purpose that I personally would like to encourage you to read it for yourself. Maybe when you get home later this afternoon or tonight, open the book of Luke chapter 1 and read the very first Christmas. Or maybe even read it with your family. Perhaps allow yourself to be opened to the more insights that God can give you for this Christmas. But today we're going to look at three things of how Mary responded from struggle to eventual surrender. The first thing that we're going to see from Mary's Christmas, amidst impossibilities, can you imagine you're a 16-year-old young lady who was met by an angel, and the angel tells you, you're going to be the you're going to be the mother, you're going to be the mother of Jesus Christ, the one who's going to save the world. Sounds like an impossible task. I don't know what kind of impossibility you're facing right now. But three things that we can learn from Mary and how she responded was this. First, Mary responded thoughtfully. She responded thoughtfully. Now, what does this mean? Luke was saying the angel appeared to give Mary a message from God. Now, how many of you have heard people say this? I am skeptical, I ask a lot of questions, and that's why I don't believe right away what people say about Christmas, about Christ, about the faith. Perhaps maybe you're one of those. You yourself are saying, I'm skeptical, I have a lot of questions, and that's why I don't believe right away the story of Christmas. Maybe some of us, we've come to accuse people of faith, or maybe even people like Mary, of having this quote-unquote blind faith, that she does not say, that Mary does not actually follow the angel and respond to this with blind faith. If you look at this very narrative of Luke, Mary responds not by saying, oh, this is so wonderful. Mary responded first, not by saying, oh, wow, the angel is speaking to me. Oh, wow, I'm being met by God. No, the first response of Mary was that of she was being thoughtful. In other words, as our youth would say, Mary was shook. Right? If you read Luke chapter 1, verse 29, look at the response. The very first was this: Mary was greatly troubled at the angel's words and wondered, what kind of greeting would this be? You know that word wondered? Maybe allow me to say it's a very weak translation of the original word. Because that Greek word means to make an audit. It is an accounting word. It means to be adding things up, weighing and pondering, or to be intensely rational. So Mary did not accept this message or this appearance of an angel as blind faith. Like, I'm just going to follow, I'm just going to believe. No. She actually wondered. She went through the process of thoughtfully pondering through it. Now, of course, she'd be troubled because, like you and I, we would definitely be troubled if an angel appears at our doorstep and says, hey, you're going to be the parent of Jesus Christ. Mary was really asking, am I seeing an angel? With Luke saying Mary was troubled, she was wondering, Mary was really asking, is this an hallucination? Is this really happening? What's really going on here? She doesn't immediately accept the message, but instead she asks, how can this be? Mary shows us that responding in faith is a whole person experience that also includes our intellect. That faith in the midst of impossibilities is not blind faith. In another translation of Luke chapter 1, verse 29, the Living Version Bible, it says, confused and disturbed, Mary tried to think what the angel could mean. You know, the Greek translation for this is confused and disturbed, is petrified and scared to death. Now again, wouldn't you be scared to death also? Because Mary had every reason to be frightened. She didn't let the fears control her. Even though she had every reason to feel overwhelmed about this impossibility that is in front of her, she decided not to be controlled by her fears. Because the fears that possibly Mary thought about was this, the fear of criticism. Imagine, if you're Mary, what's everybody going to think? I'm a virgin, and I'm going to have a baby. The next fear she probably could struggle with was the fear of inadequacy. How can I handle this? I'm only but 16 years old. I have much to learn. The next is the fear of change. How can this change my life? This is going to change my direction forever. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, Paul Village, is Mary did not respond with blind faith. She faced the impossibility with rationality and faith. In fact, in Luke 1, verse 34, the very first time she heard this gospel message, Mary asked, how can this be? Posible ba talaga? She went through it not just with emotions, but she went through it thoughtfully as well. Allow me to share to you what Timothy Keller wrote in his book, Hidden Christmas. Modern people tend to read ancient texts with an arrogant attitude, as if people in former times all had lower IQs than we do now. We assume that people back then were credulous, superstitious, and ready to believe absolutely any claim. But of course, people were not less intelligent 2,000 years ago. When I was reading this, sabi ko, oo nga, no? They actually are also of equal IQ than us. And Mary is responding much as you would respond if an angel showed up and started talking to you. As we saw earlier, as a Jewish woman, Mary had been trained by her culture to not believe that God could ever become a human being. So though they are different, the barriers she faced against belief in the Christmas message were every bit as big as the barriers you may be facing. And yet a combination of evidence and experience shattered those barriers, and she came to faith. And that's exactly how it works now. Mary doubted, she questioned, she used her reason, she asked questions, just as we must today if we are going to have faith. I don't know where we're at in our faith journey with God, especially this year, especially this Christmas. But perhaps today might be an invitation from God for you to not be afraid to ask, to ponder, to ask, how can this be? The very story of Christmas is a very mysterious story. And I remember when the culmination of Christmas actually is the death and resurrection of Jesus. Maybe if you remember at one time, the book of Luke also records that when Jesus was resurrected and appeared to his disciples, there was one guy, you remember, that started doubting, that wouldn't believe right away. The man's name was Thomas. And as Thomas was in doubt or in disbelief about Jesus being raised from the dead again, did you know what Jesus did? He showed up. And maybe let's read a little bit of that story in the book of John chapter 20, verse 24 to 28. Now Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail mark in his hands, put my finger where the nails were, put my hand into his side, I will not believe it." And a week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. And though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." And then he looks at Thomas and says, "Put your finger here, see my hands, reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe." And as Thomas reached out to him and touched the palm of his hands, he said, "My Lord and my God." Imagine this po as a movie scene. I imagine it's a room, everybody was talking, here's Thomas still doubting, and here appears Jesus Christ and focuses on Thomas. And everybody's quiet. And imagine Jesus looking Thomas in the eye and saying, "Thomas," gives out his hand and says, "If you're doubting, connect to me. Touch my hand. See if it's not me." And as Thomas connected with Jesus, Thomas believed. Friends, did you know that God is not angry, nor is he afraid if we doubt sometimes? Did you know that even here in the story of John, Jesus did not get mad at Thomas for asking or even for considering? That in the face of doubt, in the face of questions, Jesus actually welcomes us and says, "Connect to me." Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ponder. Don't be afraid to wonder, but connect to me. And this communicates so much for the character of Jesus Christ that maybe for some of us we have a lot of doubts. Maybe we have a lot of fears. Maybe we have questions that have never been answered until today. And probably this year we have more doubt than we have faith. This Christmas, amidst the impossibilities that you're facing, may you be able to find Jesus come up to you and say, "Connect to me. See if it is not I." Craig Rochelle said it very beautifully. He said, "God would rather have you run to him with your questions than run from him with your doubts." Timothy Keller, continuing in his book, The Hidden Christmas, says, "What we see is that the Bible's view of doubt is wonderfully nuanced. That in many circles, skepticism and doubt are considered an absolute, unmitigated good. On the other hand, in a lot of conservative and traditional religious circles, any and all questioning or doubting is thought to be bad. If you're in a church youth group and you have questions about the Bible, the youth leader may bark at you and say, 'You shouldn't doubt, you have to have faith.' What you have in the Bible is neither view." How many of us po, I think I've gone through that at a certain point in time, where I was afraid of questioning, I would be afraid of doubting, and I'd be afraid that when I express my questions or my doubt, that somebody with a huge, big Bible is going to come and just smack me on my head, right? And then what we have here is neither view. There is a kind of doubt that is a sign of a closed mind, and there's also a kind of doubt that is a sign of an open mind. Some doubt seeks answers, and some doubt is a defense against the possibility of answers. Continuing, Keller says, "And then there are people like Mary, who are open to the truth and willing to relinquish sovereignty over their lives if they can be shown that the truth is other than what they thought." There's the question, there's this certain type of doubt, but it's very nuanced to the point that you are open to be corrected if the evidence actually proves that you're wrong. And God opens himself to us in that area. If we still have questions that are unanswered right now, and if we're saying, "How can I celebrate Christmas? Things are just really impossible right now." Perhaps it's an opportunity and an invitation from God to ask and to tell you, what kind of doubts are you facing right now? What kind of doubt do you struggle with? Be like a Mary. Be like a Thomas. Connect to him. and allow the wonders of the story of Christmas to reveal more beautiful things about our life today. You see, the second thing that we're going to find about Mary is that the faith that she had from time to time was going on a path. As she struggled, as she went through it with a lot of thinking, a lot of pondering, maybe how do you say this? The story of faith of Mary can be paraphrased in what Titus said in chapter 3, verse 4 to 7. Watch this. The one who made you at the beginning is making you again. That probably this Christmas season, that whatever impossibility you're facing right now, God is saying, Anak, I'm making you once more. We just finished our series on transitions. And in the very ending, Pastor Edwin said, there's this certain sense of surrender that we need to give to God for us to enter this new season. So allow me to ask this question for us today. What doubt are you struggling with? Or maybe even, what stage is your faith in? Allow this not to be from you, not to be an excuse for you to run away from God, but allow this to be a reason for you to run closer to God and bring those questions to Him. You see, the second stage of Mary's faith or Mary's journey was this. After she responded thoughtfully, we're going to find out that Mary responded in wonder. I love the word wonder here because in Luke chapter 1, verse 46 to 47, Mary now begins to sing. And Mary says, my soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. Now watch these two words here, the word soul and the word spirit. Now did you know, when Mary was saying this, she was not talking about two different things. Mary did not mean the soul was part of me doing this and the spirit is doing that. Mary meant here, she was repeating the soul and the spirit were the very same thing, which means she was moved by the angel from the depths of her being. That after pondering this impossibility, after processing it, after deeply going about it in her heart and in her mind, Mary responds in wonder. There's nothing compartmentalized about it. Mary is now caught up wholly, thinking is convinced, her feelings are captivated. She responds in wonder and in amazement at the fact that this had happened to her. And Mary is saying, I'm only poor, I'm an uneducated girl, and I'm going to be a social outcast with this impossible task. How is this baby Jesus going to save the world? The angel's answer literally is with God, nothing is impossible. And history shows us that that's true. I think this year, 2021, has proven to us that when there is sickness, there's an opportunity to heal. When there is hatred, there's an opportunity to love. When there is temptation, there's an opportunity to overcome. When there's hurt, there's an opportunity to forgive. And when there are impossibilities, there's always an opportunity for a miracle. So let me share to you a story of a teenager. Actually, he's no longer a teenager. He's now 20 years old. And his name is Christopher. Maybe we can show the picture. His name is Christopher Duffley. When this young man was born, he was born to parents that were both drug addicts. And because of that, he was born prematurely, and they found he had cocaine in his veins. And because the parents saw the physical state of this young baby, sadly, they decided to abandon the baby. He was premature, struggling to live. Now, can we put ourselves in his shoes? Imagine if you're Christopher. Imagine you're in a situation that you did not choose. You didn't ask for it. In fact, it's not your fault that that's your situation. And there are things in our life that we cannot control. But isn't it true also that there are things in our lives that we can still control? But as a baby, Christopher was helpless. And here, we get to see God enter through the impossible situation by bringing people in his life. I think one of the beautiful things about this recent Thanksgiving, for me personally, So God reminded me that my greatest blessing in life were the people around me. That in the year of a very difficult or possibly an impossible 2021, God had gifted me with a team of pastors that I can be myself with, a huddle that I can be myself with, a church, a gift of community. And oftentimes po, in our greatest struggle, in the midst of an impossibility, God comes in and introduces people in our lives. And in the same way, in the life of Christopher, God brought people. Eventually, a mother adopted him, which was the sister of Christopher's father. She eventually became his adoptive mother. And there were a lot of complications to Christopher. He wasn't just full of cocaine in his body, he also became blind and eventually had more complications in his body. But while the tita was taking care of him, she discovered that Christopher was actually pitch perfect. No, this is not the movie of Anna Kendrick and Fat Amy in Pitch Perfect, but it actually means that his hearing is sharper than ever. Now, isn't it true, po, that when we have one faculty in our body that doesn't function properly, other areas can compensate for it? Correctly said that's why when a child is blind, the other senses can be heightened. So I'd like us to look at this short story, this video of Christopher, on a life of impossibility, that a life that had an opportunity to see a miracle. You see, the good news was Christopher was brought up in an environment of faith. And in this video, as the mother or the adoptive mother narrates their story, I'd like us to just enjoy this last portion of the video where he was asked to sing in his local church. And the song that he chose to sing was his favorite song. Let's watch this video of him.
Brothers and sisters, we are always courageous, although we know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight.
Christopher Duffley was born in May of 2001. He's actually the son of my youngest brother and his girlfriend. And when I received the phone call from my brother, I found out that he was born at only 26 weeks, 1 pound, 12 ounces. So he was very premature and he was in critical condition. And there were several nights that we were told that Christopher wouldn't make it through the night. And at that point, I prayed for Christopher. And I just asked God to be with my brother and to do what his will would be. And for a long time, I had no contact with my brother. Really didn't know what happened to Christopher. And all of a sudden, my heart was moved. Where was my nephew? What happened to him? And on my first phone call to social services, the gentleman knew about Christopher, and he indeed was in foster care. He was totally blind. He had been born with cocaine in his system, and he had a host of other medical issues. My first response to that, or my first feeling to that, was fear. I prayed very intently, and I begged the Lord. I said, could you just show me what you would want. Hear Christopher make noise, sing, and keep beat. He really didn't talk till about first grade. So when he sang, it was really neat. And it wasn't shortly around that time that we found out that Christopher had perfect pitch. And he started to do remarkable things. And what a joy and what a prophecy that God gave us, that these tears would come, and they come out of great joy. And when Christopher sings, "Open the eyes of my heart," he teaches us to not see everything with our eyes, but to see things the way God sees things, through our heart.
And indeed, I'm singing that today. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open
Grabe, no? Chuck Swindoll said it very beautifully. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. I believe Christopher will not be who he is today if not for people overcoming the disappointments they had in their life. The mother, the eventual mother, didn't see someone who was disabled and someone who was without any hope. Here was a mother that prayed, Lord, you have a plan, you have a purpose, and even though things might seem impossible, there is no handicap that you can overcome. Maybe in some of us, or probably most of us, we don't have a physical handicap. Maybe for some of us, we don't have a mental handicap. But could it be that maybe our handicap is faith? Maybe our handicap is struggling with the story of Christmas, the life that God had given us here in 2021. And remember po what faith is, and allow me to say this po to us, Pinnacle Village. If we find this resonating with us, allow me to be able to say that Jesus, through the Christmas story, allows us to face reality without being discouraged by it. Can I repeat that po again? That Jesus, through this story of Christmas, allows us to face reality without being discouraged by it. You know, Christopher Duffley's favorite song is Open the Eyes of My Heart. You know his second favorite song? I Can Only Imagine. And if we find ourselves being exhausted, allow yourself to be invited by God to open yourself up to the wonders of Christmas. If you find yourself facing an impossible situation, an impossible task, allow yourself to be opened up by God into a wonderful life of faith with Him. Timothy Keller, again in his book, Hidden Christmas, said, "What is Christianity? If you think Christianity is mainly going to church, believing a certain creed, living a certain kind of life, then there will be no note of wonder and surprise about the fact that you're a follower. Christianity is, in this view, something done by you, and so there's no astonishment about being a Christian. However, if Christianity is something done for you, done to you, and in you, then there is this constant note of surprise and wonder." You see, po, Mary, in the very first Christmas, could have been caught up with a lot of stress with this huge responsibility, the impossible task of being Jesus' mother, and yet she responds with wonder. A heart that was changed, that eventually changed the world. John Welwood said it very beautifully, the most powerful agent of growth and transformation is something much more basic than any technique. It's a change of heart. And as Mary found herself journeying from struggling into thinking about it, eventually finding herself responding in wonder, we see the third response of Mary. And her third and last response was in willing surrender. Let's return to Mary's famous statement in Luke chapter 1, verse 38. Mary responded, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled." Now, this statement is a statement of obedience with much to teach us. There's this old story daw po about a king that was walking around his kingdom. And at the gate of his palace was a beggar. And as the beggar was begging for food or for seeds, actually, that people would pass by through him, the things that he would get, he would put in his own bucket. And as he saw the king passing by, he thought, oh, here's the king. Here's my chance to get something more than what I would get from regular people. So as the king passed by him, he reached out his hand and asked for alms. To his surprise, the king turned the question on him, and the king asked, "What is it that you have to give to me?" Surprised and taken aback, but because he was the king, the beggar decided to take 3 little seeds from his collection and give it to the king. And as the king walked away and the beggar continued on to his life or his business for the day, at the end of the day, he counted the collection that he had. And to his surprise, he found 3 golden seeds inside his collection. And the reaction of the beggar was simply, I should have given more to the king. And I think for today, this Christmas 2021, no matter what impossible situation you might be facing, I hope and pray you might find it as a chance to respond to God and say, Lord, I will respond in willing surrender. You see, Timothy Keller continues to write in the book Hidden Christmas. He said, one reason we can give ourselves to Jesus is because we have a better view than Mary had of that eternal weight of glory that is being achieved as we obey him. But this cannot be the ultimate reason we surrender to him. Can we read this? Our greatest motive for surrendering to him cannot be for what he will do in us, but rather it must be to love him for what he did for us. In the older translation, Mary's response eventually became, in Luke 1 verse 38, be it unto me according to thy word. Did you know her son, Jesus Christ, echoed that same response when he found himself faced with the cross of crucifixion? In Matthew 26 verse 39, Jesus said, not as I will, but as you will. For most of us, Paul, we can say the year 2021 was really difficult. Maybe we can even say that this year, we found ourselves breaking. Can I see, Paul, how many of us we can relate that? I had my breaking moments this year of 2021. Can I see? All right. Thank you, Paul, for your honesty. But you see, what's beautiful is that in the Christian faith, when something is broken, we don't discard it. I think in our Western culture, we're taught to do that. When something is broken, we're taught to throw it away. Or when you receive an Amazon package delivered to your doorstep and you find it broken, you return it back to the sender. Right? We find it useless when things are broken. But you see, in the Christian faith, and which is echoed very beautifully in the ancient practice of the Japanese, there's a practice called kintsugi. Perhaps many of us are familiar with it. It's that practice of not discarding the things that are broken, but actually repairing the broken things, highlighting the scars, and making it whole again. Pinnacle Village, wherever you're tuned in from, Paul, whether you're here on site or online, you might find yourself broken many times over. Maybe you're at a point where you're saying that your faith was no longer what it used to be before. Wherever you find yourself in your journey with faith, let's remember that this Christmas is an invitation for us to surrender ourselves to God. That even in our brokenness, God can make us whole again. I'd just like us to maybe put that in a context that probably we could understand more by just watching this ancient Japanese practice of kintsugi. I know many of us are probably familiar with it already, but as I was watching this video, and as you watch this video, I'd like to invite you to see it as God taking the broken pieces of your life and putting it back together again. Let's watch this, Paul.
物というものは形になった時点で壊れることは宿命として生まれてきます。壊れること、割れること、それは決して悪いことではないと思っています。私たち自身も壊れたり欠けたり、それは日常のようにやってくることなので、それを決して隠さない。不完全であるからこそ新しいものが生まれると思います。 私は、京都で修復師をしております、清川博樹と申します。この世界に入って45年目を迎えます。金継ぎというのは漆を使って、壊れたものを修理してそこに金で、装飾をする、そういう技法のことを言います。漆で修復をしたものを金であしらうようになったのは、特別感を持たせる、より長く使い続けること、より長く残そうとしたのが一番大きな原因だと思います。金継ぎの技法を使うのはやはり器が中心ですね。ご先祖さんが使ってた器であったり、お気に入りの器であったり、やはり何かの思いが入ってる器の修理に使われてきましたね。金継ぎをした箇所っていうのはいわば一つの新しい景色になります。日本人と漆っていうのは切っても切れない関係にあります。漆の樹液自体は非常に貴重なもの。日本の漆っていうのは一本の木からそのコップ一杯をいただいた時点で伐採になります。その樹液自体が血液なんですよね。それをいただいてしまうことによって漆の木の寿命を終わらせてしまう。そして自然に対する感謝の思いをそこへ持ってきましたね。その自然素材を人の手で、時間をかけて手間暇をかけて加工する、それこそが自然との共存、持続可能な方法だと思っています。
金継ぎを始めたのは2年ぐらい前です。金継ぎを実際やってみて本当にやっぱり時間がかかるものだということと、本当にものを大切にするという気持ちが分かりました。だいたい修復してきたものは自分が使っていたものが多いんですけれども、地震で割れてしまったお皿であるとか、自分が幼い頃から使っていた食器だとか、どうしても捨てられるものではなくて、それは壊れてても捨てられないものだったんです。でも多分それが今あまりだんだん薄れていっているという気がします。だから使い捨ての時代だと思うんですけれども、そういうものからもう少し自分で直しながら何かをしながら長くいいものを使うという、そういう生活を取り戻していけたらいいなと思います。
人の壊れた部分、精神性も含めてですね、その修復に一緒に関われたという、それをすることで自分自身の壊れた部分も一緒に修復ができているような気持ちになります。自分自身ももう一度修復ができるんだと、それはいつまでも諦めちゃダメだと思います。自分のキャリア、自分の歴史を隠さない、たとえそれが大きなアクシデントであってもそれは受け止めなければならない。そしてそのアクシデントがあったから新しい自分が生まれるんだと、それは大きい思いですね。
I love what he said when the artist said, try not to hide the accidents the bad things, the painful things that you went through, try even to highlight them. Because this Christmas, through Jesus, we have this faith where we can face the impossibilities and face them with faith, with willing surrender. There's a scripture in 2 Corinthians 4, verse 7 to 9, where Paul likens us like treasures of jars of clay. Paul said, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side." How many of us, you feel that? There's so much pressure on every side. But we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but we are not in despair. We feel like we're persecuted. There's so many things, so many people saying things about you, but you are not abandoned. You're struck down, but we are not destroyed. I think Tim Lucas once upon a time said that verse can sum up the year 2021. But you see what's more beautiful about this verse also in the book, and rather the beauty of restoring broken things, is that life can be shattering, but your broken story can bring God glory. Now, as you find yourself in willing surrender like a Mary, may we find ourselves being restored by God, finding our brokenness being highlighted in gold, and allowing this story of our lives to bring glory to the name of God. John Wesley po wrote a very important prayer. Allow me to share his prayer as somehow we close today. John Wesley said, "I am no longer my own, but yours. Put me to what you will. Rank me with whom you will. Put me to doing, put me to suffering. Let me be employed for you or lay aside for you. Let me be exalted for you or brought low for you. Let me be full, let me be empty. Let me have all things. Let me have nothing. I freely and wholeheartedly yield all things to your pleasure and disposal. And now, glorious and blessed Father, God, Son, and Holy Spirit, you are mine and I am yours. So be it. And the covenant now made on earth, let it be ratified in heaven. Amen." We'll end with what Mary said. Mary said in Luke chapter 1, verse 46, "My soul magnifies the Lord." Have you ever noticed, Paul, that Christmas is a magnifier of our life? That if we feel like things are going on for the past 11 months, somehow the good things are magnified during this Christmas season. But maybe for some of us, we feel like December feels unbearable. We feel that we were going through a relationship that was challenged. Maybe it's being more accentuated now, rather, during the holidays. Maybe we normally battle with loneliness and we feel even more alone now during this Christmas season. But allow me po to be able to say, instead of focusing on ourselves, instead of focusing on what we have or what we don't have, instead of focusing on what we did or what we should have done, could I encourage you to do what Mary did? To magnify God. Magnify Jesus. That while most of us knew growing up that Christmas was meant to be a celebration of Jesus, the real action is what Mary did, which was surrender to Him. And I think Christmas is highlighted by gifts, right? On December 24 or 25, we like to open our gifts. And we like to see the sense of wonder, the sense of excitement with the people that we gave gifts to. Isn't it true that, when we think of a gift to a person that we're giving, part of the joy is actually seeing their reaction to how they receive the gift? Did you know, in a very real sense, that's how God is also to us every Christmas time? God, through His Son, Jesus, gave us a very precious gift, wrapped it carefully, sent it to us. And when God sees us open that gift and receive it with full surrender and full excitement and wonder. God being the giver of that gift experiences great joy as well. So this Christmas po, as we even go through the series of Why Not Christmas, instead of magnifying our own lives, let's magnify our God. Let's magnify our Jesus. So allow me to ask this question before the band just comes up and gives us a song po as we end. Amidst this seemingly impossible situation, will you make God a bigger part of your life? Will you do what Mary did as well? Where amidst the impossibility, Mary said, "My soul will magnify God." Ewan ko po, you might feel broken. We might feel that we are in the process of restoration. We might even feel that things are impossible right now. But as we end, can I invite you, if you're feeling that knock from God, if you're feeling that voice from heaven, and say, open this Christmas gift. Go on a journey this year, 2021. Make it a very special year. Can I invite you to open up yourself in willing surrender to the God who gave everything to us? Can we all rise at this time, even if you're tuned in online, wherever you're in from? Let's join the band. Let's just sing this last song po.
Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, but you love my whole heart. Sin has no hold on me. His grace holds me now. Healed and forgiven. Look where my chains are now. Death has no hold on me. His grace holds that ground. And your grace holds me now. And your grace holds me now. Your grace holds me now. And your grace holds me now. Healed and forgiven. Look where my chains are now. Death has no hold on me. 'Cause your grace holds me now. Your grace holds me now. Your grace holds me now.
Before we end in prayer, Pinnacle Village, there's two things which I'd like to say. The first is this. Christmas is not the end. It's just the beginning of the story. And allow me to say also that the Christmas story, the coming of Jesus into this earth, it can change how you read your story and everything else. I don't know where we're at, but may we allow Jesus, through this Christmas story, to change our stories as well. Let's come in prayer before our God. Father, the year was very heavy for many of us. In fact, possibly we can face the next coming days, weeks, or until the end of the year with more impossibilities. But we thank you, Lord, because you allow us to journey in faith, taking just one step at a time. Father, you never rush us, but you're very patient with us. And so here we are. Allow us to find ourselves on a journey from one faith to the other, from glory to the next glory. Father, just like a Mary who struggled, but then pondered, thought about things, eventually led her to wonder, that eventually led her into full surrender. Lord, here we are. As we sang that song a while ago, Lord, once we were broken, but through your love, through your grace, you can make our hearts whole again. So, Father, here we are. Lord, for some of us that find ourselves willingly surrendering to you once more, we thank you for embracing us with your love. We thank you for forgiving us. We thank you for healing us. We thank you for giving us hope. And we thank you for the story of Christmas, how it can change my story and how it can change how we read other stories as well. We thank you, Lord, for the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ. And as we continue the series of Why Not Christmas, we pray that you might speak to us in ways that we have never imagined. We pray that we might find ourselves more in wonder and in amazement of who you are. We pray that we might find our faith even more deepened. And we pray that our relationship with you might be more intimate than when the year started. As we give our tithes and love offerings, we give them to you with thankful hearts, thanking you for providing for our needs. We give them to you once more in faith, saying you are our God, even in our finances. In a very special way, we lift up to you every person represented, online or on-site. Lord, the families that are represented, jobs that are represented, companies that are represented. Father, may we find ourselves saying, thank you so much. Thank you for the gift of Christmas. So, Father, here we are, and we'd like to say, thank you for loving me, and we love you as well, po. We carefully give back to you all the grace, all the honor, and this is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. Salamat po, Diyos. Thanks for watching. If you like that clip and you want to watch more of the full message, go ahead to go to our website, which is at pinnaclevillage.org. And also, thank you for helping us reach 1,000 subscribers. Now help us reach 2,000 by go ahead clicking that subscribe button, smash the like button, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the videos. And if you also want to share this video, we have discussion questions on the description box below for you to talk about with your friends, family, and loved ones. Because here at Pinnacle Village, we believe and practice our lives are stronger when connections are deeper. See you next time.